One and a two and a long dog funk. Long dog funk. Long dog funk. Long dog funk.
Well, happy Monday, viewer, listener. If you're tuning in live, I'm Chris. I'm the Longbox Punk, and I am here with a brand new live stream just for you. This time along for the ride, I've got Adam. Adam just recently fully crowdfunded his first of 4 issues of a series called Mantle. I'm super excited to get into it with you. Adam, thanks so much for taking time on a Monday evening and talking comics with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here to hang out with you and talk about the book. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. And I just got to say, it's not often that I get shelf envy, but my friend, the background that you have there is hard for me not to just oogle at. It's quite the impressive collection. So I can tell that you've been around comics for a bit. I would love though to hear like what's your origin story? Where did all of this? Did you just go crazy at Borders over the weekend and buy all of those books? Like how'd you get into comics?
Yeah, no, so not at all. I always say to people, like, they say, you must have spent a lot of money on that. And I say, well, if you just do the same thing for 40 years, you're bound to like amass a bit of a collection and a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's how far I go back with comics. I was super into comic books starting in about 3rd grade when I discovered Transformers and The Punisher and Spider-Man. And that carried right through until high school. And I was a pretty nerdy high school kid. Ties a little bit with the comic book that I put together. I think the only thing I wanted for my future at that age was to somehow work in comic books or write comics. And so here's the origin story part, which is kind of interesting. I was trying to figure out, how do you become a comic book writer? How do you break into this business? And I remember at a convention, I heard Dan Slott, who was, most famous for writing Spider-Man for a number of years, but he was around even back in those days. And I remember seeing him on a panel talking about how he broke into Marvel as an intern through their internship program. And so I was a high school student in Ontario, Canada, but I inquired about whether I could get school credit to be a Marvel intern. And I reached out to Marvel and they said, we've never had anyone from Canada before. So I also had relatives in New York City that I could live with, and just all these things coalesced into this like amazing opportunity where I got to be a high school intern while I was in 12th grade at Marvel Comics.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I realized what a rare opportunity it was. So while I was there, I was like telling everyone I wanted to be a writer. I was pitching story ideas, just taking any opportunity I could to make the most of it. And before I had left, I had actually sold 2 Spider-Man scripts to editors I'd been working with. So one of them wound up being like a 10-page story in the back of an issue of Spider-Man Unlimited that Sal Buscema drew, which is like an amazing thing to have in my past and my life experience. Yeah. And then there was another Christmas story, a 6-pager. And those like came out like after I'd returned back home. And so I was like local celebrity for a little while. And I hadn't even gone to college or university yet at this point. And, a lot of people don't remember this, but in the mid 90s, shortly after I'd had this experience, Marvel went bankrupt. And although I'd been trying to continue the relationship and keep all those doors open, pretty much everyone I had in my network at Marvel no longer worked for Marvel. And I went off to college and, had other priorities and thought it was more important to write poetry than comic books, which is a silly thought in retrospect. But, long story short, 30 years passed. I had a whole other life, a whole other career. And it's only in recent years that I realized I had to get back to this. I had to do it while I still had the energy left in me. So that kind of brings us pretty close to the present day.
Yeah. And that's super self-aware too, to know like just the amount of energy that it takes to get a comic made. Like I underestimated that personally and was not ready for the, work a regular 8 to 5 job and then come home and be a husband, and then the wife goes to bed and then create comics until like 2 in the morning and go to sleep for like 3 hours and get up and do it all over again. Like I wasn't ready for all of that. So good on you for being aware of that. And I'm sure the internship helped with that. So like, what was it like in the Marvel offices? Like I've read plenty of, you know, biographies about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and how, the early days at Marvel and the offices and just the creative energy. Like, was it as tangible when you were there as an intern that it's always like talked about, or is it just over uh, optimistically remembered?
It was pretty magical for me. I mean, I was a young person too. You know, there was no Jack Kirby and John Buscema and these guys, the older guys sitting around a bullpen or anything like that.
Yeah.
But this was when they were at 387 Park Avenue South, which I think they've moved a couple times since then. This was the period when there were 5 editors in chief. So there was like a Spider-Man, EIC, Bob Harris on X-Men, a few other editors in chief overseeing different lines of books.
Mm-hmm.
This was the period when the Clone Saga was well underway in the Spider-Man titles.
Yeah.
And so I was mostly working in those offices, and it was just very cool to be around the editorial staff, like, gossiping about how they got themselves into this mess and how they were going to get themselves out of it. So, when I read stories about that period or interviews with creators, reminiscing, like I was there, it was very cool. And some of the guys like Tom Brevoort, for example, I spent a few days in his office. Like he was there then, and he's still there now. And there was a bullpen then. I'm not sure if they still have such a thing, because like digital had not taken over at that point. Like if you wanted to make a lettering correction or an art correction, or even if you just wanted to duplicate artwork for printing, like you like cut Bristol board and pasted it onto another piece of Bristol board and photostated a copy of it. And so there was like a full bullpen of people, not drawing the actual artwork for the books, but doing all that sort of work that was involved in like the physical production of comic books. And and they gave me free comp books every week, and it was for a young person who was obsessed with comic books, it was a pretty magical place.
I was gonna say, it sounds like the dream.
yeah, it was pretty glorious.
That's awesome. So like, how do you like coming out of that internship? I know, you went into college and then lived a very different life, but like, are there still times where you're like, I can't believe I did that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the older I like, not to get too, philosophical or melancholy here, but it's like, when you're that age, you kind of think anything is possible. And, I'm doing this now when I'm 17 years old, but I have a lifetime of these sorts of experiences ahead of me. And I have no complaints about the life I've had, done all sorts of fun things, but like, you don't realize when you're going through it that like, you may never experience anything as cool as this again.
Right.
And so, in some ways it made for like an interesting decade, like of my 20s, where I came out of school and I had my first job and I was trying to like get some writing going and just even motivate myself to write anything at all. And it was weird to have had such an amazing experience and amazing success in my past, and like for it to be so hard to come like anywhere near that again. And I did other things over the years. Later in my 20s, I worked in film for a little bit, and I made an independent film, which I do not recommend anyone go out and find. But I took a number of like kicks at the can, if you will. Mm-hmm. But yeah, nothing is just fairy tale magical as that period at Marvel when I was 17 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that completely. Like, everything that I've read is just like, man, to be able to tap into the creative energy that has always been talked about by everybody that's ever talked about the Marvel bullpen of just like, yeah, it's just full of this magic.
Yeah.
The closest that I feel like I ever get is at a convention, in like Artist Alley and just standing there. I'm the weirdo that like stands in the middle of the alley and I just like look around of just like, man, this is so cool. Like there's sales happening. There's fans that are finding themselves as brand new fans, like right there. And that
Yeah.
magic, I wish I could bottle and just keep with me all the time so that when I'm feeling the like, how do I get out of bed today? Just take a swig of that and I will be good for a week. But like, even though you had those super high highs, then you just made a book and kickstarted it and successfully funded it at the end of June, fulfilled it in July. Like here we are. And now you've got issue 1 of 4 coming out of Mantle. So like, tell me how this story came to be and like why you chose this story to be the one that, you worked on now.
Well, it came to be because like I have a whole other career, a whole other day job that I've, I guess, pursued for decades at this point. And rarely do you get a substantial amount of time off. But a few years ago, I happened to have a break between jobs. There was a 1 month gap between one thing and the next thing.
Okay.
And I remember like thinking to myself, like I knew well in advance that it was coming. What should I do with this time off? And in the back of my mind for a while, I'd thought if I ever went back and pursued another creative project, like I had done the film thing, which, as anyone who knows anything about film knows, it's just like so many people involved and so much money, and the stakes are so high because you have to go out and shoot. And if you get it wrong, you have to live with that footage that for, forevermore. And so I remember just thinking like, if I got back to doing something creative, what might it be? And a comic book seemed something that like, while it can be like a difficult task unto itself, it seemed like controllable. It felt like this was something I could do. I also had some friends that over the, decades I'd known them had some experience working in comics and had some success over time. And just seeing other people in my vicinity make a go of it made me think like, okay, I could do this. I know what's involved in making a comic book. So anyway, during that month off that I mentioned, I just made the decision that I was going to pretend my job was making comics. And I would show up for myself every day. And I remember setting a goal to just like write myself several pitches. If I was going to start a new project, 3 to 5 projects that I might do. And frankly, I don't even remember what the other ones were. One of them was what became Mantle. And, I guess it was just like the flavor and the tone of like comics that I personally enjoy, and drawing a little bit on my own life experience and things that I thought I would enjoy writing about and that I would have something to say about, something that was maybe just a little personal and a little different from anyone who'd ever tackled that kind of subject matter before.
Yeah.
So I got it started during that period. I went back to work, but I always kept this going while I was, in the background of my job. I found an artist online. I did not have a big social media presence at the time, but I put out like a call for artists, and found somebody and decided, that I would spend a little bit of my own savings to like get this going and sort of privately Kickstarter it. And we were kind of off to the races. I was writing script and the artist was doing some work, and, feel free to ask me any questions you want, but that's kind of how we got the ball rolling anyway.
That's cool. Like when you were looking for the artist, were there specific thing, like a specific style that you had in mind? Or were you just like, I'm just going to cast a super wide net and whoever gets back to me, I'll find one that resonates and feels like it's a fit? And like, how did you approach like working with a brand new artist?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the right way to put it, but like I was open to a wide range of options. Like I wanted to find someone that could do the job, and I was kind of ready to adapt to almost any style that they brought to the table, provided they were competent and could tell a story and were willing to work for a guy like me on an indie project without a publisher behind him. And I should say very quickly, Jean Fernando, who I'm working with on this, far exceeded my expectations. Like I got super lucky, but like I was a guy with like a Twitter account with like, I don't know, 10 followers or something. So I just really didn't know how much reach I would be able to get out of this. Yeah. But I put together a little call for artists and mentioned in the ad that it would be paid. I could afford to pay somebody some semblance of a page rate. And I think I got like 40-ish responses to the Google form I had made. And seriously, like 37 of the 40, I couldn't have imagined using them like on an 88-page story.
Yeah.
And then there were a few that were just great. And Jean was one of those, and like he's far exceeded my expectations. It's been terrific. And an important part of it was like I would reach out and make contact, but like we've got to collaborate here. So there has to be a rapport. We have to like enjoy working with each other.
Yeah.
We have to be able to like actually get the work done, and he has to be able to respond to my script and get across the characters' emotions and the storytelling. Anyway, like we did some sample pages together, and like I couldn't have been more happy. And even now I look at the finished product and I feel like super lucky that we got to make the book look as good as it now does.
Yeah. It's always great. And like there's some sort of comics magic that happens when you happen to find an artist that A, you love their work, and then B, love working with them. Like those two things seem to be like diamonds in the rough of the 37 of the 40 that are just like, this isn't right. Like it doesn't fit. But finding that person that you can collaborate with and make something really cool with, there's that spark of magic. Like with the collaborative process that you two have, was it something with the story that like you had already planned, pre-planned the full story?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you started working with him, like, did things change, or like, what was that give and take like?
Well, I think if I recall correctly, I at least had the first 22-page issue fully scripted when I went out to find Jean. Okay. And I think I had a rough idea of what the remainder of the story might be. But in those early days, I'm not sure I had fully figured out that, okay, this is going to be 4 issues and it's going to have a finite ending. And
yeah,
here's what my 3 cliffhangers are, that sort of thing. I'm not sure I had fully baked that out. And as I recall, we initially did 11 pages because the thought was, well, maybe a publisher would be interested in this. Maybe someone would be interested in backing it in some way. So like, why don't we do a little bit, hope it comes out great, and see what that gets us. And so like, I don't mind saying that we put together a pitch package and submitted it to like, I don't know, a couple dozen publishers at least. Yeah. And I got a few rejections. I got mostly, crickets. And understandable. I'm sure the piles of submissions that these guys receive are insane. Mm-hmm. But I always knew that self-publishing it was an option and maybe even a likelihood. And after a little bit of time of waiting to see whether that package got any action, I just went back to Jean and said, okay, we're going to do this. Let's finish off the first issue, and I've got more coming. And I wound up having another break in work. This one was not of my choosing, but I decided to seize the opportunity to, finish the scripts and do as much as I could so that my part of the work as a writer was complete. Yeah. So I queued up, the full 4 issues of scripts, and Jean has been pushing through ever since. So we're almost done the 2nd issue now, and looking forward to like publishing all of it next year.
That's awesome. So yeah. You've already got all of the script work like completed and off to Jean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I know what the ending of this thing is, and people read the first one and tell me like, "Oh, I enjoyed it. I need more. I can't wait to see what happens next." And it sort of kills me that, well, there'll be another issue later this year,
yeah,
and there's a good ending, and it's coming next year. So sit tight.
Yeah. The like. that's the thing with indie comics, right? Is the scheduling of it. And because there aren't many full-time indie comics creators, like we're all doing this, burning the midnight oil or the candle at both ends, like choose whatever mannerism, whatever that's called,
Mhm.
that you know, fill that in here. But like we're not making, you know, we're not working for like the big two where it's guaranteed that these books are coming out every month and you're working, you know, 3-4 issues ahead. It's like hey, I have this thing done, let's kickstart it and go, and then let's get the next one done and then kickstart. Like the timing of it is drastically different than the market is for people that are just dipping their toes in indie comics. Like I have family that don't comic at all. And
Mhm.
so like explaining to them, yeah, we have our first one. They're like, oh, so like when's the next one come out? I'm like, probably next year. Like the next summer is
Yeah.
probably when we're gonna go. And almost every single one of them were like, oh, really? Why? And it's like, what do you mean why?
Yeah.
You know, it's there is a lot of solo work that I can do, but I can only do so much when I can't do any of the artwork on my own. Like I, you know, working with an artist, and you know, at this point, like we're just collaborators because it's as much of both of our stories, but it's definitely like a thing that I didn't realize I was going to be explaining to people of
Mhm.
like, yeah, indie comics, like the timing is just different. So
Yeah.
like what I don't want to give away any, I'll let you lead the conversation with content, but like for those that aren't familiar with Mantle, what's Mantle about?
Well, it's about a 14-year-old boy who goes to school in Mississauga, Ontario, which is a suburb of Toronto, and he's bullied really badly at school. And one day he discovers a powerful object in his dead father's closet, and that object winds up, first of all, being an opportunity to take revenge on the bullies that had mistreated him at school, but also there's a story behind that. There's a family history there that he didn't know about. So in the first issue, I would say like phase one of that happens. He gets this object. It's a glove. It's a power glove that shoots energy, and he brings that glove to school and takes action. But in the remaining 3 issues, there are consequences to this choice that he's made. So he's dealing with those consequences and trying to stay out of trouble, and also discovering more about why this item was in his deceased father's closet to begin with. And I think we have a lot of fun with it.
That's cool. Yeah, I immediately was like imagining being, you know, going through my dad's closet. Not that, you know, he passed away, like my parents divorced, but so after he had moved out, like going, there was a certain level of like hesitation of, well, that's dad's stuff. Like I gotta get that in the car and take it to dad, but you know, mom doesn't want to touch it. So like there was this like weird mystery with dad's stuff until we got it all to him. So seeing the like, oh yeah, I keep meaning to go through the closet and like, you know, sift through this stuff, and why is he keeping this stuff? Like that whole sequence resonated so deeply with me because I was like, I feel like I did that, and it was just like, why this stuff? And so I'm happy to hear that we're gonna get to see Vijay go through the like, what was dad doing? Because it's not like, I like how in when he's on his way to school on the bus and like watching the superhero fight the big bad villain on his phone, it's like, oh, so okay, so this is like a well established, there are superheroes and villains in this world. So that gives a certain level of freedom and then understanding as things move forward that like, oh, this probably happened to a lot of kids across the world of like, oh yeah, my dad's a superhero. So,
Mhm.
you know, but like, so I'm curious with learning all of this, like how much, I know you said some of it is like slightly personal.
Mhm.
Feel free to tell me to shut up, but like
No,
how much
I'm good.
of Vijay's story
Mhm.
of like having, you know, just growing up with mom and also like being bullied, like how much of that story is true or like personal for you versus like what you added to enhance his character?
Yeah, I mean, I was bullied in school, so like some of that is maybe the most autobiographical stuff in the book. Um, a lot of other stuff there is like, quite fictional. Although I think people who know me well could probably draw like a little map of virtually everything in there and where it comes from in my
Okay.
mind.
Yeah.
For example, VJ's a teenager and his father passed away recently. I lost my dad much later in life, but I could relate to that experience of losing my father. And, exactly like you said, going to the closet and everything has this like special import to it. And
Yeah.
suddenly like, the history of this person, like it's funny when somebody is alive, it's like somehow their past doesn't seem to mean all that much to you. But as soon as they're gone and their life is ended and it's this finite thing that they can no longer tell you about, well, that's when it really becomes like fascinating. That's when suddenly you're eager to fill in the details. And in the story, BJ has more details to fill in than most. And to your point about the superheroes, I guess the concept here is that like this is a world in which superheroes exist and good is fighting evil, except VJ's problems are just beneath them. No one is coming to help him. And he didn't realize he had any connection to this larger world until he finds this item, and it kind of opens up Pandora's box, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes crashing into his reality. I love there were certain choices, and I'm going to dance around this, so pardon me as I put my tap shoes on. There, after the locker room scene, which his intro into the locker room scene is the perfect. I was like, I feel that in my chest, because yes, bullies are the worst, and it shouldn't happen, and yet it still continues to happen. But after the locker room scene, the dialogue of him thinking through what happened was some of the funniest dialogue of just like experiencing the freak out of what in the heck just happened. And then the like, oh no, what's going to happen to me? And then what the heck is this? That like all of this, like him processing everything that happened as he's escaping. I just like, I was audibly laughing as I was, and the like full block of the exact same line just repeated over and over and over. I was like, oh yeah, I remember, I've had the repeating lines of dialogue. So like, this might seem crazy, but like as a guy, do you remember being a teenager and having like those moments of just discovery into panic? Into like, did you have those types of experiences to tap on to like inform how you wrote that scene?
Yeah, I think I did. And maybe I can start from a process perspective and then sort of get around to answering your question, which is initially when I wrote the script, I remember there was no first person narration. I was not going to have those captions throughout the issue. I don't know why, but my brain it always starts minimalist. And I thought, well, the pictures and the little bits of dialogue will tell the story. And I remember, I think I started to see the first pages of artwork and realizing, wow, there's a lot of space here. There's a lot of, this book is going to go really quick if I just, populate it with the dialogue that I have in mind.
Yeah.
But not only that, to kind of answer your question, I remember thinking like, well, what would make this book special? Like, we've all heard these superhero stories about a kid who discovers he has powers and this kind of thing. Like, what could I do to like maybe bring a little more of myself to it and my own experiences? And that's when I had the idea that like, I think I could write some hopefully like very authentic first person narration to take the reader through the story and bring them closer to VJ, the protagonist. And so like, especially in the early parts of the book when he's going through the experience of being bullied. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried my best to like channel what that felt like and to make it seem real and honest. And it actually makes me really happy to hear you liked the end of the book, because I was trying to do the same thing there to like really get inside VJ's head. Yeah. But I personally never lived through that part of the story. So I did my best, and I remember being unsure of it. So anyway, yeah, it's good. I'm really glad to hear you enjoyed that part.
Stuck the landing.
Cool. Thank you.
One of the other things that and this might like breach into spoiler territory for future issues,
for it.
but I think it was some process artwork, and I don't remember if it was in one of the updates that you sent out or if it was on a newsletter, or if I'm just completely making that up. But I feel like I saw process artwork of the cover, and it looks like there's a full suit in the background, not just the power glove. Is that like foreshadowing of things to, because we don't see the full suit in the first issue? Like, is that going to come into play later?
Probably yes.
Great.
I think it's there even in the finished cover. So I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying if you look closely in the cover of the first issue in the background, there seems to be a larger mech of some kind that perhaps is related to the thing that BJ is now wearing on his hand. And I would say there's like a very good chance it relates to the story that is to be revealed about where that glove came from.
Perfect. I was hoping it was going to be one of the, I was a theater kid all through high school, so easy to get targeted between theater and show choir that I was in and reading comics and liking pro wrestling. Like I just should take your pick, right? I had all of them.
I try to explain to people sometimes that, you know, now you see people walking around wearing like Marvel Comics t-shirts in the streets. Like every third person is wearing a Spider-Man shirt or something nowadays. But like when I was in high school, you'd get beat up for wearing something like that. That was like a very bold choice.
Yeah, it really was. And it like, because I used to wear like pro wrestling shirts, and my dad would take me to the shows, and then my mom would take me to the shows. And so I was going to all of the local shows that I could. But yeah, wearing like a wrestling shirt to school in junior high and high school was the biggest, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did, like, just paint the target in the shape of Undertaker's face. Like,
absolutely.
Yep, like go ahead. And then I just got to a point where I was like, why do I care so much about anybody else's thoughts about me? And I just gave it all up sophomore year and completely changed as a person. But like as a theater kid, I always like bringing this up because that was one of my 9 college majors, because I couldn't decide, and I still can't. Thanks, Mom. But with Chekhov's gun, is like Anton Chekhov would write, as he would write scripts for theater, he would include something like everything had a purpose. And so every time that I approach writing, that's ingrained in me because I just think it's smart writing. But he, you know, if he had a gun that was on the mantle in the first act, in the third act, that gun was being fired. And so I was hoping that by seeing the giant mech suit on the cover of the first issue, it would come into play later. Like, is it because you really got into comics with the Transformers and G.I. Joe, who always had this crazy equipment with them, that like you decided to go the route of the mech suit?
I don't know, not consciously.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm not actually like a super big anime, you know, robots guy. Okay. But I like some of it. I love Pacific Rim. I like some of the aesthetics of like Robotech. So I can be down with that stuff. I mean, Iron Man is awesome. I'm a Marvel guy. So I don't know. I think when I was just like dreaming up the story, I just started thinking like, where would this power come from, and how might you do something that was like transferable between one person and another? And I guess it just sort of made sense to me that like if it's mech based, it solves a lot of problems and lets me tell the story that I had in mind.
Yeah. Now, what other, like, aside from all of the Marvel stuff, like what when you're reading comics, what do you look for like as a subject matter?
Man, I read a wide range of stuff. I mean, my background probably tells a big story. But I don't know. When I think of like what I'm doing in Mantle, I have to admit I think like Brian Michael Bendis is a big influence.
Okay.
Like when I just think of like what he was doing on Ultimate Spider-Man, or or a creator that's doing something like that now is the book Exceptional X-Men by Eve Ewing.
Yeah.
There's something about like the pacing of those books and the way they take their time to like tell a very character driven story and follow a character over several issues. And maybe that's decompressed storytelling for some, but it's actually like what I really enjoy. Like I remember binging I think like 100 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man at one point, and just really getting into it and getting close to the characters and feeling like it just flowed. So that's an example of like something that stuff that inspired me. There's plenty of stuff outside Marvel too, but that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned Ultimate Spider-Man, because I admittedly was never a huge Spider-Man fan, except for the Ultimate Spider-Man run that came out like mid-late 90s, early 2000s. I collected every single trade of that, and like that was my favorite Spider-Man. And then also went into the Clone Saga because I loved seeing the other versions of Spider-Man. Like for me, that was the thing that I was like, this is so freaking cool. But I grew up like Jim Lee and Chris Claremont's X-Men #1 is the book that had me hooked. And I used to go and pick out Wolverine books at the comic shop when my dad would take me, and I was reading like Valiant comics with Shadow Man, and I was reading Savage Dragon from Image, and so it was always like flirting with the indies. But then also when I went to the big two per se, I was never really a huge DC guy. I was just always like, and it was because Superman was a perfect god and Batman was a cajillionaire who just could solve any problem with money. And for me, it was like, oh, Peter Parker like has to figure out how to go to college and have a girlfriend and be a superhero and make web things work. And like those real life tactile things that it's like, oh yeah, I know what going to school is like, and dealing with a teacher that hates you, and having a best friend whose parents never quite are your biggest fan. And like those relatability things are what drew me to Ultimate Spider-Man, and then kept me in line with the X-Men. And so now like I definitely understand the draw to character stories. Like, are there, with like the big events, I mean, thinking about like the Clone Saga, are there big events that have happened recently? Like what was the last big event that happened across anything that you were like, yeah, this is the magic spot?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, I follow a lot of Marvel books, so like even their current events, like Imperial, for example, I'm digging that. But actually, one that comes to mind to answer your question, I remember when King in Black came out, written by Donny Cates, art by Ryan Stegman. I remember it came out towards the tail end of the pandemic, if I remember correctly, and there was a period during the pandemic when comics just stopped coming out altogether, and so like it was a dark time for everybody, including comic book fans. And King in Black and that Venom run really played into the darkness. But I remember when that crossover event started, and I think it's in the first issue, there's a part where like Null, the symbiote god, has come down and the world is in some kind of a black shield and everything has gone dark. And then there's this part where like all the heroes start kicking in, and it's like Avengers and Spider-Man, and then it's like X-Men show up, and the X-Men had been off from Krakoa, but here they are for the crossover. And maybe it was just the climate in the world at that moment, but I remember being like very like moved and just jazzed by that whole event. It felt like the heroes were coming together to set things right.
Yeah. There is definitely a like rightness of when the heroes all come together and have that triumphant moment over the dark villainy of everything. Like, as much as I can roll my eyes at stuff like that, of like, oh, of course they did, they just swoop in and it fix everything, I also like, there's still the child in me that loves those huge crossovers, because then you get to see characters that don't normally interact working on the same team, and there might be weird team stress dynamics and stuff happening because they're coming together and trying to tackle the same thing, and everybody's going to have different approaches. And like, those are the things about those big team ups that I really like, or those big crossover events, is just seeing heroes and villains sometimes that come together to fight for the greater good that just have no right belonging together, but somehow the creative teams make it work and make it entertaining, and they topple the bad guy and all those things. So I'm always down. I'm a sucker for the big crossovers, but at this point with Marvel, I just wait for the collected volume of it, because there's no way I can keep up with all of the floppies on all of the different series, plus the main tie-in, plus the all of those things. I remember trying to read the Thor story of like the War of the Realms.
Oh yeah.
It was just so all over the place that I just gave up. Like halfway through the event was coming out, I was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna wait. And I actually only just read it like a year and a half ago, and I was like, hey, my library has everything, cool. And so I just borrowed everything from the library and read it that way.
Marvel Unlimited is good for that, by the way. You can do a lot of binging on there.
Yeah, that's what I hear is a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm checking out this whole event of 75 issues of stuff, and I'm like, if I had more time.
Yeah, totally. There's a good one on right now, One World Under Doom, I think it's called.
Yeah.
With Ryan North writing it, RB Silva drawing it, and the whole premise of it is Doom becomes Sorcerer Supreme and then becomes Emperor of planet Earth. And so all the heroes want to stop him, but the twist is he's actually doing a good job. He's making the Earth better, and the public actually supports him. So I'm not sure how they're going to stick the landing on the story. We're kind of in the final stretch now, but it's got my attention. It's been good.
Yeah, as a fan of Doom, I remember when that series was, or that big event was announced, and I was like, cool, that'll be my next big expenditure, because I just think Doom is like the best stories for me are when Doom is relatable. And seeing like, oh yeah, Latveria is thriving under Doom. And yet you have Captain America coming in like, you're bad, Doom. And he's like, but look at my people. Our poverty is non-existent. And those are always the times that I like the conflict of, I know I should be rooting against you, but I can't help but root for you. And hope that you figure out a way to topple the Avengers, because leave them alone.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to like this current one then. It's good.
That's good. That's good to hear. What do you think, speaking of Doom, and now this is one of those tangents. What do you think of the RDJ casting of Doom? I was just talking to somebody earlier, and so now it's like, I want to talk to everybody. What do you think about that casting choice?
Oh man, I could really go off on a tangent if you get me started on MCU. But I'm excited to see what they do. I have a lot of confidence in the filmmakers and Kevin Feige and the Russos. And, I think things have slipped a little lately. That's my personal view. And they've certainly slipped from a financial perspective. But I think the RDJ thing is an interesting choice. I'm super curious to see, are we going to acknowledge that he looks like Tony Stark? In the whole multiverse thing, you could easily say that, well, in the Fantastic Four's universe, the Stark lineage went this way instead of the way that we know. Or is he just going to be, scarred or something, and they just won't deal with that at all? I'm very curious to see whether they complicate the Doom story with that or not. But I'm very excited. December of next year can't get here soon enough.
Right. I do love, even though when they announced it, it was for me, because it was like, why? You have so many other actors that could. Again, that's a soapbox that give me someone that either is a total no-name person or someone that looks very Western European. Right? Give me the strong cheekbones of Mads Mikkelsen. Give me Cillian Murphy even. I think he could be a fun Doom. But I the casting announcement, and I fully trust the process. I trust Feige. I have not been let down. I still enjoy all of the Marvel movies. I'm not one that's going to be superhero fatigue is the current hot topic phrase to say. I don't think it is. As a comic fan, I am living my best life right now, because they're delving into stories and characters that have only ever existed on the page. So now that we're getting Doom War and Secret Wars, I fully trust in, like you said, in the filmmakers and the Russos, in Feige, in Marvel Studios. Like, that has never wavered for me. And also, I really hope this is a swerve. Like, I really hope that this is like the Multiverse of Madness, when we got John Krasinski as Reed Richards, and Sir Patrick Stewart came back as Professor X. Like, and then they immediately just got obliterated. I hope that's what happens. Is, you know, the first part of the movie, we see RDJ as Doom doing whatever he's doing in Latveria, and then, you know, he just ends up being a variant, and the real Doom comes in as like Emperor Doom or God Doom, even like give him the full white, because everything has been so green and silver heavy, which obviously, but like, give me God Doom where he's in the white and the fur, and like super majestic, and just come in and obliterate RDJ and be like, silly Doom bots, there's only one Doom. Like, give me that, and I would just lose my mind. Because
I'm not sure I would get your hopes up too high about it going that way.
I know. I know there's like a 0.5% chance of that, like even considerably close to going down that way. But dang it, I can hope.
Yeah. I'm reassured. Like, I don't want to spoil the Fantastic Four, you know, movie for everybody, but like, you know, Latveria is a thing in there. Like, I'm reassured by what I'm seeing. I like, you know, they got the FF totally right. Like, in my opinion, like this was finally like the proper portrayal of Marvel's first family. And so like, I feel like Kevin Feige knows that this is his chance to get these characters right. I'm optimistic Doom will be Doctor Doom.
Yeah, I'm fully trusting, and I like don't watch any trailers because I don't want to see the best things and the big reveals before they happen. I'm so glad I saw Thunderbolts opening weekend, because had I seen the billboards that they put up like on Sunday of opening weekend,
right,
and, you know, completely spoiled the big reveal and the turn, and explain the asterisk, I would have been bummed. Like, don't save that stuff, Mark. Like, keep it close to the chest.
Yeah, no, that was annoying. And yeah, I feel like in a way they kind of like, because the movie did well but could have done better, and I feel like the whole, you know, using the Avengers word didn't really help them all that much. So I don't know. I wish they had played that differently.
Yeah, but hey, it's a new Marvel universe, and post Thanos snap and all of the things that everybody says. I don't know. I'm gonna keep going, right? Like, I'm gonna go and see all of those movies in the theaters. It's just I have very high hopes for next December, because I again, like, the treatment of the Fantastic Four was done so well, like so much better. And I didn't hate the first ones. Like, I didn't. And I know that that's almost sacrilege to say, as you know, many people are like, oh, it's garbage. They were still fun for me. And I just like to pretend that the Doom from those movies were just Doom bots, and we haven't seen the real Doom yet. But knowing that, you know, they treated Galactus how Galactus should have been treated, and they nailed Silver Surfer. And so, like, seeing those characters come through so well, I have full faith that they're going to make Doom as so very Doom. And I just want the swerve. I just do. But that's okay. So aside from Mantle, because you've already got those scripts like in ready, are you working on other stuff, or are you waiting to see Mantle through before you start? Like, is there gonna be a next project or a next series from you?
The main other thing I've been thinking about is actually like a continuation of the Mantle story. I don't know if it's just because I'm living and breathing Mantle these days, but I definitely have been daydreaming, and even doing more than daydreaming, about what the next arc would be, where we would go from here. So there is something in mind. I would love to be able to tell that story. I guess I need to see where this current journey takes me, to see if that's, you know, in the cards or not.
Yeah.
But You know, it's been an amazing experience actually to come back to something you said earlier. Like, you know, we've been talking about all this Marvel stuff. Like, I'm used to reading monthly comics. I'm even used to just, you know, sometimes reading a trade collection is the best way to do it because you don't have to wait and you can just experience the thing in full.
Yep.
And with indie comics, it's hard to have that experience. Like, there may be as much as 6 months between the 4 issues of my series, and you know, people are going to have to refresh their memory when issue number 2 comes out. So in some ways, that's a little bit of a bummer. But first of all, it takes us well more than a month to produce them. But also, like, I feel like it would do a disservice to the whole thing to just like dump it out in 4 months. Like, I always could have waited until we were done producing this and then start putting it out into the world. I mean, that would have been a little harder financially, but that was an option. And I think what I eventually realized was like, no, that's not the way to do it. Like, I need to get out here relatively early in the cycle, putting out a book, having people discover it, coming out and talking about Mantle and my career like this. And, you know, hopefully by the time Mantle number 2 is ready for Kickstarter, a lot of people have read number 1 and are looking forward to seeing what's next. And we kind of build some momentum along the way. So when I say who knows where we'll be by the end of issue 4, like, I guess that's what I mean. I'm really hoping we can like get some traction with this and build an audience as we go.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking, I'm going to totally cheat here. You had 135 backers that backed this first issue for like the first of a series. And I know they always say like the second issue dips a bit, but like where in the meantime, because I was just thinking about this actually like yesterday, what do you do between Kickstarters to keep so that Mantle, like, you know, doesn't completely disappear from people's brains? Or like, how are you reaching new audience or finding new fans between the campaigns?
I'm very glad you asked because I want to talk about these things.
Perfect.
Well, the Kickstarter allowed us to put a bunch of print copies and digital copies out into the world. But now there are at least 4 ways to get Mantle and consume it as a reader. It is on Global Comics. So if you're a Global Comics subscriber, you can log in and easily read Mantle number 1 right now at no additional cost. And I plan to put the future issues there as well as we go. So follow me on Global Comics or subscribe to the book there, and you will read the series as we get it onto that platform. The book is also available via Kindle Comixology, which that's how I consume a bunch of my comics, to be honest with you. So I was eager to be in that platform as well, and to make it really easy for Kindle users to one click and download the book.
Yeah.
I have a website, adamsantangelocomics.com, and from that site you can download a PDF version, so you can instantly have it for $5 Canadian, which is like $4 American.
Yeah.
Or you can get a print copy sent to you with very reasonable shipping rates. I'm probably even losing money on the shipping. So if you want the print book in your hands, which I think is quite a nice object, I think we did a good job printing it, you can get it for $10 Canadian, $8 US, and small shipping fee. And then the 4th channel is I'm going to be doing a bunch of shows over the course of the fall. I'm starting out with local stuff in and around Toronto, Ontario, Canada, but planning to get out to some US stuff next year. And I'm just going to be out there with a pile of copies of Mantle, talking to whoever will listen about what we're doing with this series and trying to get some followers that way. Hoping I can win people over with my charm in person.
There you go. It's all about the like, hey.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter was just the beginning, is my long story short.
That's great. Are you just thinking like about the con perspective? Are you going to make a real life gauntlet to like sit on the table?
It's so funny. Someone said that to me like a week ago. They said, I've got a great marketing idea for you. You should make the gauntlet. That had never occurred to me. And I'm not like a cosplay guy. Like, I don't know how people create these amazing suits that they wear to the cons. But I don't know. Maybe I should make a gauntlet. I mean, maybe I could mod like an infinity gauntlet or something like that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And you've got to have connections just like working and talking to other indie creators that might know a guy that can at least do some fabrication for you, and get that, because I'm thinking like, okay, so the back is like a turtle shell almost. So like, what if you just bought like a plastic gray plate and retrofitted that and filled in with some foam or something? Like, it's totally doable. Now, to get the energy blasts, I don't know how you would pull that off, or even if you should. But
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. Like, it's something that not everybody can have at their table, and so like it automatically gives you a hand up.
I should hire you as a consultant on this.
I don't know about
I
that.
mean, it's funny, like you were asking me earlier, the idea of making a comic book seem daunting, and I'm like, I think I can figure that out. I need an artist, a colorist, and a printer, but like I wouldn't know where to begin making a glove. So I'll hit you up for ideas if I decide to do that.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely let me know. I have never done it either, but I've had friends that cosplay all the time, and I just am fascinated. Like, I'm the Tony Stark, where I got to take the little tiny piece and blow up the whole thing and examine everything to understand how it works. So when I see people doing insane cosplay, I just can't help it but be like, how did you do that? Like, what?
Yeah.
What in the world? How does your brain work? Because I don't have that brain of just I'm going to look at a pile of raw materials. And
how much time did you spend making those suits? Like, it's incredible.
Yeah. I hosted a cosplay contest at a local con last year, and somebody made, I've never played the game or watched the movie, but the Five Nights at Freddy's with like the animatronic looking bunny dog thing. Someone made like a full body replica of it from scratch, and it was like movie quality costuming. And talking to the person, it was weird because I was using like a drumstick as a microphone, and so I like would ask my question and like stick the thing into the the costume head for the person to talk. It was like a 14-year-old girl that made this whole thing, and she said she spent like 100+ hours over the course of like 4 months making everything and retrofitting it and painting it. And I was just like, I don't understand how you have the drive to do that at 14. Like, when I was 14, if I did anything other than play a Sega Genesis or watch Dragon Ball Z, that was a productive day for me. And here she was, just like this full, it was so insane. She took home first prize by a mile, but it just was like, I don't understand how your brain works.
I think I kind of understand it, because when I was a teenager, I was like OCD obsessed with, comic books and collecting and filling in the gaps in my runs and appearances of my favorite characters and stuff. So, I mean, I think I get the superhuman levels of obsession a nerd can have as a teenager. Yeah. It just, for me, wasn't directed towards costumes. Yeah. But I think I can get it. Like, I get how someone could decide that's their thing and dedicate several years of their life to it.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I worked for several summers at our local theme park, and I was in costume as Scooby-Doo, and it was the most fun I have ever had doing anything, because you get in the costume and suddenly like you're that character. And so you get to act like that character regardless of what you as a person would act like. And then I just didn't stop when the head came off. Like, I just continued. And that like really helped me find just my comfort level, because it was like, well, if I can do this dressed as Scooby, I can do this as me. Like, I don't have to be wearing 25 pounds of fur to, have some fun and act ridiculous. And so like it in a weird way, like helped unlock any remaining inhibitions that I had after high school of just like, I don't want to be the guy, like whatever. And then I found myself in Scooby, and I was just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to act like a fool all the time.
And now you're a public facing podcast host.
Yep. And now here I am. So, I mean, it all comes, I guess, kind of full circle. My wife always jokes that half the reason that she married me is because I talk enough for the two of us. The funny part is, like, that's totally true. She's super introverted, and I have never met a stranger. So we make a good balance. But Adam, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm quite an introverted person myself, but I don't think I would willingly go out and like host something like this. But I think I can hold myself in a conversation. You know,
Yeah.
I'm good for short bursts of extroversion.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that you were a super introverted person. So there's something about the like just comfort of, oh, I'm not face to face with a stranger. I'm like staring at a camera. So that's
Yeah,
fine. It's never been a problem
sure.
for me.
You
But
learn to hide it over the years
yeah,
if you're lucky. Yeah.
yeah, my wife's still working on it. But okay, so that's the end. I'm out of like official notes, but there's two more things I want to do. The first is I'm going to take a screenshot and then I'm going to use that as the YouTube thumbnail. Basically, it makes my life easier, but it's a fun way that we can pose and make sure that we're looking our best. So
Right.
I will get here and we will count down in 3, 2, 1. Cool. And then the other thing is what I gave you a warning about before we started. Part of the reason that I love doing this show is I get to talk to people that are all over the world with all different sorts of backgrounds, all different walks of life, all different perspectives, and yet we all share a love for comic books, indie comic books, creating, telling stories. And so as part of that, just acknowledgement that everybody comes from different backgrounds, I like to make sure that every creator that comes on the show has some space to share whatever message they want people to hear from them in their voice. So whatever you want people to hear from you, this could be a sales pitch for Mantle. It could be why you're never going to make a gauntlet because who needs to count screws? Like the content doesn't matter so much as I just want to make sure you've got some space to share anything that you want anybody that might be watching or listening now or some random Tuesday in the future to hear directly from you. So I'll stop talking and rambling and let you go, Adam.
Well, maybe I'll just say that, it's interesting, and any of you who've created something, you know that you spend a lot of time alone in a room or in your basement, working on this thing. Writing is a very solitary act, and, maybe you get a collaborator involved and it's you and that person you're writing and they're drawing, but you spent a lot of time in relative isolation putting something together. And Mantle is something that's been in the work for years. And I always knew we'd eventually get to this point where we're putting it out in the world. But now that we're here, I'm just like so eager to like share it with people and to reach as many readers as possible and to have all of this work like, have as much of a reach as I can possibly give it. So, a few hundred people have like read Mantle at this point, which is like really cool and exceeds some of the expectations I had. But the reason I'm on a podcast like this and the reason I'm out there on social media is because I want more people to read it. I really think we've done something good here. It's been a labor of love, and I would love to reach as many readers as possible. So maybe just to touch on a few of the things I said earlier, you can find us on Global Comics. If you're a subscriber, you can read Mantle now for free, and you can follow me as a creator to be notified when future issues ship. You can go to Kindle Comixology and get Mantle #1 with just a tap and read it alongside all your other Kindle books and comics. You can go to my website, adamsantangelocomics.com, where you can get a print copy delivered to you at a very affordable price. And I think, frankly, that's the best way to read it. It's put together a nice physical book. Or you can get a digital copy, very short checkout process, and you'll have it there in your inbox, a PDF for $5. Or if you're not ready for that level of commitment yet, you can subscribe to my mailing list on my website. You can find me on X at Adam Santangelo. You can find me on Blue Sky at Adam Santangelo Comics. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at Castle Frank Comics. Don't ask me why that one's different, but it is Castle Frank Comics. And Mantle is on Facebook as well. We have less followers there. But there are many places where if you find me via your platform of choice, you will hear me talk not only about Mantle, but about comic books that I love. And you will be on the Mantle news train. You will hear about future developments. And when you're ready, you can dive in and read the book, which I really hope you do. We put so much work into it, and excited to have it out there.
Perfect. And the hard work shows because it's definitely a story that's full of love and the artwork looks fantastic. I love the, seeing the process pages because I'm a process junkie, but seeing it come to life from the thumbnails to the pencils to then the full inked and colored pages and then adding the dialogue and reading it. It's super cool. I agree. I think it's a really fun story. I had a blast reading it, and I saw a lot of myself in a lot of the scenes. So thank you for putting the work and the time and the effort and the money and the isolation time into making it. Because I agree. I think it's a fun story, and I think a lot of people can find themselves in bits and pieces of the story, no matter what their walk of life might be. So I will make sure that I don't know if I have the website in the description below. I definitely have your socials, but I'll make sure to update the description with the website so that people can easily find it and then hopefully purchase the book there. But Adam, thank you so much for hanging out with me and allowing me to just go on tangents about Marvel books. Because it's not often that I have somebody with your experience working and interning with Marvel that can share a little bit of that history, because I'm just super fascinated by how all of it works. So thank you for just going on this conversation with me. I had a blast, and for your flexibility of shifting the time a little bit for me. It worked out perfectly on my end. So thank you so much. That's all that we've got here on a Monday live stream on Longbox Punk. So before I ramble anymore, I'll just say the tagline and we'll get out of here. Hang tight for me, Adam. I got logistics for you after we end. But for everybody else, feel free to share this on your social media or with your networks, or tell a friend, or do the thing that you do with stuff that you find on the internet that you like, and just do those things, and I'll appreciate it, and we'll all be better for it. And lastly, and most importantly, go do what's good for you and read some indie comics, because we are out of here. See you next time.